reflecting back on this week, I just realized, man, like, there's so much to be thankful for in this day and age. And we say that it can kind of sound a little bit confusing because we think, man, our world is as messed up as it's ever been, right? But I just think back more and more, like, I look back at my life and there's so much to be thankful for. And so, kind of with that theme in my own life, I've kind of been thinking and praying about what we should talk about in this season of Thanksgiving. And unlike some of you guys, which I'm sure, just by show of hands, how many of you guys are listening to Christmas music already? Oh, not as much as I thought. So, Kylie and I are Scrooges. I'll just be honest with you. We are Scrooges. We do not listen to Christmas music until at least December 1st. That's just where we're at. That's kind of where we're at in our heart. And so you can judge us if you want to, but we want to be thankful before we enjoy Christmas. And so that's kind of our heart behind that. But in this season, especially with the holidays coming up, our world is just going to speed up and speed up and speed up, right? I mean, it's the consumer monster is coming for us, just ready to eat us all whole. I mean, that's really how our world likes to think of it. And in this world, we have so many different ideas and opinions that are thrown at us, telling us what we need to do, how we need to look, what we need to buy, the kind of family we need to have, all of these things to be happy. They just scream, do whatever makes you happy. Our world just loves that. That's our world's theme song. And yet, Jesus' definition of a fulfilled, a blessed life, if you will, is so much different than the world's perception. But talking about being blessed and what that looks like, I was looking at the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and I was trying to think back in my life if I've ever really heard a pastor really look at the Beatitudes, and I can honestly count probably on just one hand of how many times I've heard it preached directly. I think I've heard it referenced a lot. But the Beatitudes, I've never heard an entire sermon or entire sermon series dedicated to the Beatitudes. And so that's kind of where we get the idea of just calling this series Blessed. And for those of you that may not be as comfortable or as aware, I guess, with hashtags, I'm with you in that. I was kind of late to the party of understanding what a hashtag was. I always just thought that was a pound sign. I don't know what they're going to do for kids nowadays. They're going to say pound, like, what's that? But it's a hashtag, apparently. And so what you're able to do is that you're able to look at a hashtag, obviously, and you're able to look at all the different pictures of anyone who's ever posted of a picture and they've used the hashtag blessed. And I'm just as guilty of that. I've put hashtag blessed, I've put hashtag blessed, too blessed to be depressed. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities with that hashtag, being able to look at what people put. But if you were to look on Instagram, if you were to look on Twitter and see that hashtag, you'd see an entire different spectrum of different things of what people would say makes them blessed. And so my heart behind this and kind of where I'm coming from, I want to know what Jesus has to say, what it means to be blessed. Don't you? Don't we all want to know what that looks like in our lives? And so I'm kind of just going to be opening right up into the Beatitudes and just reading through these really quickly. But so often, I think we've heard these words before, but how often do we really just listen to them? And so if it helps you at all, to close your eyes and just kind of listen to these blessings. Jesus offers these. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who came before you." Man, isn't it just a breath of fresh air? I read that, and I look at my life so often, sometimes I can feel like I don't really measure up. I don't feel blessed. I don't feel like I really am enjoying the richness that Jesus is talking about in those verses. But I want to know what's really the heart behind these words. What makes us blessed in Christ's eyes? And so my main goal, I guess, if you will, with this entire series is that we can all understand that Jesus can take away all of our burdens. He can take away all of our worries, our grievances, and he can create a gospel-centered purpose for our lives that will draw other people to him. And so with that in mind, I want to kind of play a little bit of a game with you. I realize the picture's not going to be as quite clear for you, but how many of you guys understand how hard it can be sometimes to take things literally. Or you have people take things way too literally before. Anyone else? I've been guilty of that myself. But I want to share just a couple of these. The first one, actually I think we'll have two pictures here. So the first one, I don't know if you can read the directions, but it says to name the quadrilateral. Okay, this is a great math problem. You think not that hard. This girl decided to actually name these quadrilaterals. She named them Bob and Sam and Tennyson and Kate and Harry. Like, she got very creative. She got very, very creative. Now in this one, you may not be able to read that sign, but it says no bicycle parking. So what do? They park their unicycle there. That's definitely getting around the rules there a little bit. The next one is another math problem. It says to write less than or greater than. But just I guess the way that it was put in between, they wrote or between every single one of those. Took it way too literally there. And then this next one's pretty funny too. I got a kick out of this one. Draw a bridge, so he's got his sketch pad. He's ready to draw it out there on his sketch pad there. I love that. Kylie was sharing with me another story of a girl that she's met before, and the girl was told not to color with crayons on the wall. And so her mom comes back in the room after telling her not to color in the walls, and she comes back and she's not coloring with crayons, she's coloring with markers instead. And so that's kind of the idea there, is that so many things can be taken literally when they're not intended necessarily to be that direction. And I think that can be so true of us, especially in Scripture, and looking at the Sermon on the Mount and with the Beatitudes. There's so much that we can take literally, and there are things that should be taken literally, but not all of it. And so, I guess before we dive into Scripture, I just want to present you with a question. What makes you happy? What does it mean to truly be blessed? Now give me some participation here. What does it mean to be blessed? Anyone, blurt something out.
Have a family.
Have a family? Yeah, that's huge. One other thing, something else. Healthy? Yeah, good health. What else does it mean? Maybe just one. What's that?
Having support.
Having support. Yeah, that's huge. See, happiness in our world is so circumstantial, right? We assume it means you have to have the best kids, you have to have the best hair, the best clothes, the best teeth, best car. But that's not at all what Jesus says makes us blessed. That's not what makes us happy. And so I want to share just a little bit of a study with you. In the 1980s, Psychology Today did a survey on over 5,200 people about what happiness meant to them. And there was a very wide array of answers. But the best answer probably had to be, I think I'm happy, if you could please verify for me. Some people have to know if they're happy based on what other people think of them. But what they found is that it really didn't matter if someone was rich or poor, if they were a believer or not, if they were married or not, or where they lived. What mattered most was the attitude they had about their circumstances and the way that they approached their life. And so while Psychology Today was not able to pinpoint exactly what happiness is or what it was at that point, they did verify what unhappiness was not, or what unhappiness was. And they said, unhappiness is what I don't have, but think that you do. I love that. Unhappiness is not what I don't have, but I think that you do. And I think, unfortunately, church world has kind of adopted that as well. We look at other churches and we say, oh, they have the best budget, they have the best youth group, they have the best kids program, they have all this amazing things they're able to do with their church. And while some of that's true, that's not what makes them blessed, right? And so often we can look at other individuals even within the church, we can have judgmental looks, we can have side conversations, we can have all sorts of unhealthy outlooks of what it means to be blessed and happy. Lyman Phelps is considered to be one of the greatest American novelists of all time. And he wrote this about happiness. He said, if happiness truly consisted in physical ease and freedom from care, then the happiest individual of all would not be a man or a woman, but would be the American cow. I love that. Again, if you really want to boil it down to what happiness is, it's probably being a cow. You don't have to worry about any care in the world. Just get to eat, sleep, poop, and repeat. And so, I guess that's what happiness is for a cow. But again, Jesus' words of happiness, of being fulfilled, they leave us wondering kind of what exactly are we supposed to see as happiness? What makes us blessed? And so, kind of a little bit of a context for you, the Beatitudes. The original language that Matthew wrote his gospel was Aramaic. And the word blessed that he would have used there at the beginning of all those verses would have directly translated to supremely blessed, well-off, fortunate, or happy. And these 8 statements came to be known as the Beatitudes. And aside from the Lord's Prayer, the Beatitudes are probably the most famous portion of the entire Sermon on the Mount. And because Matthew is writing for a Jewish audience, he uses a lot of emphasis on Jesus' teachings and immediately following up with his actions. And so Matthew 5 and 7 are the Sermon on the Mount. But immediately following that, we see Jesus going into towns, healing people, doing all these things he literally had just talked about. And so the entire book of Matthew really could be divided into 6 sections, where the first section we just see God's origin, or Jesus' origin, obviously with the birth story and his baptism and him going to the desert and getting ready for his ministry. And then 4 sections where we just see him teaching and then immediately going and acting on what he just taught about. And then the final section, of course, being his crucifixion and the ending of his ministry on earth. But of course, we want to focus on the beginning section of Jesus' ministry, detailed in Matthew 4 through 9. And so, how many of you guys can admit that you like sandwiches? Any sandwich fans in the house? I love sandwiches. Kind of can probably confess, I would probably be okay eating sandwiches every single meal, every single day. Especially if I get a Chick-fil-A sandwich, that's my happy place. That's my happy place. I could do that all day. But there's kind of an interesting dynamic in Matthew 4 through 9, and it kind of is a sandwich, honestly. So in Matthew 4:23, we see this statement, kind of a summary of Jesus' ministry up to this point. It says, Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. Now it's interesting, you skip forward about 5 chapters, in Matthew 9:35, pretty much the same thing. It says Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. And I don't know about you, when I have a sandwich, I want to have some good meat in the middle, right? Like if it's just 2 pieces of bread, like what's the point of eating that? But the meat we see, of course, is the Sermon on the Mount. And with this all mounting and what gets our appetites wet, I guess, for what Jesus is going to teach on, what his ministry is going to consist of, he starts with the Beatitudes. And immediately, it takes us back from what the world should expect to talk about happiness. He immediately prefaces his entire teaching with, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Now again, too often in church and in Christian communities, we can read these words and think of them as demands of the kingdom. And I want to go ahead and dispel that myth for you. These are not prerequisites for entering into heaven. They're not. These are just simply something to give us grace, to give us freedom, and to realize, look, if we have a relationship with Christ, if we have this hope, we have this relationship with him, we are in this world not to just go through the world legalistically, but to go through this world and be a blessing to people, to give grace and freedom to others that need it so desperately. And so, in other words, if you're poor in spirit, if you're meek, if you're merciful, if you're all those things, you are blessed. And I don't have to tell you, the world does not agree with that, right? Our world tells us you have to be rich. Our world tells us you have to be strong, show no mercy. You can say whatever you need to say to get around in life, to get ahead in life. If you're hungry and thirsty for righteousness, you're a freak. More or less. That's what our world teaches. But of course, that's not the truth. And so, for those of you that take notes, this first point I just want to tell you is that there is no comparison between heaven and earth. And that heaven is full of grace. Immediately, that's what Jesus is setting us up with. There's no comparison between heaven and earth. But heaven is full of grace. And that brings us to a paradigm, because whether we see the Beatitudes as prerequisites for heaven or not, it still should cause us to look inward a little bit. It still should cause us to look at our life and see, how does it compare? When I'm poor in spirit, or if I'm mourning something, do I feel close to God? If the majority of the world is begging me to play around in this dog-eat-dog world, am I really following Christ's word? Am I following his example of what he says to do? Do I allow room for meekness in my life? Am I being humble? Am I actually thirsty and hungry for righteousness? Our world demands that we move forward, and if we don't, we immediately get left behind, right? That's the way the world works. But again, that can be so true in the church world. Too often we think if you're not going to all the Bible studies, if you're not going to all the worship services, if you don't have this picture-perfect family, if you ever have an argument in front of other Christians, we immediately assume, man, something must be really wrong with them. I'll pray for that, right? That's Christianity, unfortunately, in our world. But Christianity, having this relationship with God and with Jesus, really has more to do with our heart. And so we think so often that we have to wait for heaven to experience all this grace, all the things we read about in the Beatitudes. We think we have to wait for that. And I'm here to tell you that's wrong. It's wrong. I want to draw your attention to something. Beatitudes are another sandwich in and of themselves. They're sandwiched between the first and last statements Jesus makes, where he gives these current promises. He talks about us presently experiencing the kingdom of heaven right here, right now, today. And so in Matthew 5:3 and 5:10, they are both promises that says the kingdom is yours. And so if you're looking at the last bit of each of those statements, it goes like this: the kingdom is yours. You will be comforted. You will inherit the earth. You will be filled. You will be shown mercy. You will see God. You will be called God's child. But the kingdom is yours right now. So verse 7, I think, really is what I believe to be the heart of Jesus' message for this entire Sermon on the Mount going forward. He says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." God's kingdom is filled with all sorts of people who are full of hurt, who have been hurt, who hurt others. And the truth is, it's going to continue to be filled with people that the world considers broken or useless. And that's not something we should be nervous of. That's something that should be encouraging. Because I don't know where you're at today, but I recognize I'm broken and I need God's grace in my life. And I would love to be with anyone else who feels that same way. Is it all right if we're honest today? Is that okay? I have your permission to be honest? I think a lot of us, and myself included, we can find ourselves trying to earn God's love. We can. We read these words of Jesus and we can immediately just think, I don't measure up. I don't feel all those things that he says I should be feeling. And I think that comes from a really mixed up idea that we think that God's love is centered around us. And I want to just dispel that myth for you as well. It's not. If you think of it, a creator loves his creation long before a creation can ever love the creator. And that's true for us as well. And I want to show you just a very practical example of this. And I was looking through some of Jesus' interactions with people all throughout the different Gospels. And I think the best example really has to be his disciple, Peter. It's very likely that Peter would have been listening to Jesus teach these very words there on the Sermon on the Mount. But of course, we see that Peter is not exactly this ideal guy we want to follow. But he's very bold. He has an incredible faith. In Matthew 16:17, we see Jesus' words become a little bit more clear for this grace of the kingdom and what it means for us to have mercy and what it means for us to be shown mercy. Jesus, resting with his disciples, he asked them who they believe him to be. And Peter, of course, pipes up and confesses that he believes Jesus to be the Messiah, the Son of God. Jesus' words are incredibly encouraging. He says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." And you're asking yourself, well, Pastor, what does that have to do with me today? That very same blessing is on you and me today. We've never seen Jesus. We've never had any physical evidence to suggest that Jesus was real. But again, because we have faith, because God himself revealed to us his grace and his love, we can know that Jesus is real. We can have faith and believe there's something more in this life than just running the rat race. None of us have ever seen Jesus, yet we gather together because we choose to believe in something more. And there's nothing inside me or inside you that would ever draw us to the conclusion that God is real, apart from God revealing himself to us. That's the truth. And so the second point would just simply be that God loves us first, and he reveals himself to us by his mercy. You think about that. Again, God loves us so much that he will reveal himself to us by his mercy. Even though we can believe something, we also know that life has a very funny way of messing up our beliefs. Amen? I know for myself, in my own story, it can be really hard looking at why I should believe. It can be. If we're just honest, it's okay to admit that. Life can be very difficult. Life can throw all sorts of circumstances at us, and we can just feel defeated, and we can abandon God. And as much as we may think that God is just going to turn his back to us, he's going to say, you know what, enough, I'm done with you. That's not God's heart. And we see that in Peter and Jesus' relationship. Peter denied Jesus 3 times after his arrest. He denied him, even went as far as cursing himself if he ever followed Jesus. And after the resurrection, Jesus reunites with his disciples, and he makes a point to reinstate Peter in John 21. And this isn't going to be on the screen, so forgive me for that. But he asked Peter 3 times if he loves him. And in the English language, we miss out on so much of this interaction. Because the first 2 times, Jesus asks if Peter agape or unconditionally loves him. To which Peter responds, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo or brotherly love you. On the 3rd time, though, Jesus kind of lowers the bar a little bit. He says, Peter, do you phileo me? Peter's hurt by this. I can probably imagine he gets a little bit choked up because of what he realizes what just happened. Jesus, the Lord and Savior of the entire world, this incredible man, God in flesh, expected this incredible love from you, from me, and from him. And even though Peter wasn't ready to say, you know what, I agape love you. It's okay. I'll meet you where you're at. That's the grace of Jesus in that moment. And so Jesus' mercy gave Peter a renewed conviction and a new direction in his life. He would act justly. He'd love mercy. He'd feed the sheep as Jesus instructed him to do. He would show mercy to those who didn't deserve it. Friends, I believe God is more concerned with our hearts than he is with behavior modification. I believe he is much more concerned with our hearts than keeping distance from us. I think he's more concerned with mercy being given than judgment. I think he'd love for the entire world to come into heaven with him. I think there's room for that. I think he wants room for that. But mercy given should always lead to mercy given. Does that ring true for anyone else? Mercy given always leads to more mercy given. It's like a domino effect. Whenever we receive mercy, whenever we see God moving in our lives, when we see worship and God coming alive in our own hearts, it has to naturally overflow into the rest of our lives. It has to. Does he want our lives to be transformed? Absolutely. Does he want us to live out the Beatitudes by being merciful, by being pure in heart, by being a peacemaker, being comfortable with facing scrutiny when we take the high road? Absolutely. But this shows that he is willing and able to meet you and to meet me exactly where we are at today. And so the only way that transformation ever takes place in our hearts is if we first experience God's love, internalize it, accept it, understand it, but then also immediately give. And that's what the Beatitudes are about. So are you poor in spirit? He loves you anyway. Are you mourning? He loves you through it. Are you trying to stay humble? He'll help you. Are you hungry and thirsty for justice, for righteousness? He's with you in that. He wants that too. But the grace of heaven is not something you have to make a savings deposit for to earn. That's another point for you. The grace of heaven is not something you have to make a savings deposit for to earn. It is here right now, and Christ's words encourage us and challenge us to sell out and to live out this grace of the kingdom right now as it is in heaven. I don't know about you, but I want to experience the grace of God's kingdom. Amen? I want to experience that as much as I can right here, right now. And I think about what this world needs. And you want to have a practical application with this. I understand that. But gauge yourself on the Beatitudes. Again, we don't want to take it literally, but just be honest with yourself. Take a self-evaluation. Read them for yourself sometime today. Read through those. And when you are mourning, when you're poor in spirit, when you're going through all those things, and you're facing scrutiny from other people that are judging you, do you feel blessed in those moments? And if not, ask yourself, why? Why don't I feel blessed in those moments? I think He's okay, He's comfortable with us asking questions and not being exactly complete right now in this moment. I think God leaves room for that. And so just another couple ideas for you. Do you stick up for your faith in your home, at work, or with your friends? Do you find yourself in certain behaviors or attitudes that don't really represent God well? If not, commit to being more genuine with your family. Commit to being more genuine with your faith by seeking out an accountability partner. Initiate conversations with your family about faith. Keep it simple, maybe, just by sharing the high and low point of your day and praying for each other. I think God expects grace to be given when we have been given grace as well. And the calling of the Beatitudes is not to look at our world in judgment and say, you're evil, all these things, the expectations you lift on me, I don't have anything to do with it. I turn my back to you. We can't turn our back on the world. We can't. Our world needs us. The world is waiting for us. And so the world is never going to align itself with Christianity. And so life requires us to make the first move. It does. It requires us to make the first move. So we have to start uncomfortable conversations. We have to make time to slow down. That makes sense. We have to slow down when our world wants us to rush. And we have to give grace even when people don't deserve it. That's the heart of the Beatitudes. And that's the direction we're going to be going in the next couple of weeks as we look more into how God uses us and wants to give grace to the world. And kind of just some closing reflections. I just kind of want to share with you my own personal experiences with the Beatitudes. I've been privileged to travel overseas a couple of times now on short-term mission trips. The first one was in 2013. I went to visit my uncle in Africa, in Zambia, and it was incredible. I went this entire trip expecting to give this incredible, interaction with somebody, or to lead someone to Christ. And really, I went there, and it wasn't even the poverty that really marked me, or, set me aback. It was just the joy of anyone that, if you smiled at them, that's all you had to do. And so there's a picture I just kind of want to share with you. There's this little girl. I called her Munchkin. I don't even know what her real name was. But as much as I wanted to stick around and just love on her and show her just the love of God, the simplest thing I could do was just give her a little bracelet. But that's all it took for her to know that she was loved. That's all it took. This next one, we had gone to Jamaica back in 2016, and it was a very fun trip. We were at this little private school where the kids are very fortunate to be there. It's very expensive for education in Jamaica, and for them to be there was like they were the top dogs, essentially, in the community among the kids. But again, we went expecting to have these incredible, conversion stories, and there weren't any like that. But what we got to do was just to play with them during recess. And so I got to adopt myself as what they call the Burrito Man. And so I learned this song that I had sung for a long time back in high school. Just some stupid little diddly. I can sing it for after service if you're really curious. But they called me the Burrito Man. And so I was known as the Burrito Man the entire week. But just playing with them, loving on them, was the best thing I could ever do for them. And I don't share this to lift myself up as this incredible pastor that goes overseas to love on people. No. What I'm getting at is, what can you do this week or this month to make someone feel blessed? Because even if you may not feel completely blessed, if you may feel inadequate, we are all still capable of doing something to lift someone else up. I believe that. And so, whatever that looks like, if it includes you singing a stupid song to a kid, or if it includes you giving, buying someone's coffee, it includes buying the car next to you in the fast food line, do that. Just do something to make someone's day incredible. you never know what impact it might have. And you don't have to even know that they did it for you, or that, they don't have to know that you did it for them. Do it just as a simple act of kindness to pay it forward. And so that's my heart for you guys this morning. And as we go on the next couple of weeks, looking closer into the Beatitudes, I would encourage you, just open your heart to see this grace that God gives so freely and see how you can live it out in your own lives. Pray with me if you will. Father God, we are so thankful to you today, Lord, that we don't have to be afraid of persecution in America. Lord, that is just a huge privilege in and of itself. But God, I confess to you, in my own heart, and just for the church, we've often squandered our resources. We've squandered our things for our own benefit. And God, we know that you call us to more. You call us to give of ourselves. So God, we just ask that you would fill our hearts even now in this moment as we're preparing to leave. That we wouldn't look at our lives and see just these small moments as something meaningless. But God, that we would take advantage of the small things. We would use whatever influence we have for your kingdom and for your grace, for your kingdom, to be fulfilled here on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, I thank you for everyone in this room. I thank you for all of our stories, all of our past, all the things we carry. Lord, you can use them in a mighty way, much greater than any pastor or any other person can use them, Lord. Because with you, nothing is impossible. And we believe that today. God, be with us now as we prepare for a week that may be full of stress, that may be full of hard conversations, full of mixed emotions and wanting to react and say something we're going to regret. God, just be with us in every single one of those moments. Give us the grace to represent you well and to make you famous where we work and where we live and where we play. Lord, we love you. We ask this all in your incredible name. Amen. I want to thank you all for being here this morning.